So here we are, Harry. We are back.
Yes, we are.
It's been a while since we've done this, so we'll call this season 2 of Equipped, I think, as we're going
Yeah,
for.
seems appropriate.
Excellent. I'm still Aaron and you're still Harry. We're still here. And today, I think we just wanted to dive into a few conversations we're passionate about, I think, and I think touch everybody at the moment in the weird world we live in with misinformation and digital communication and all that kind of stuff that's happening at the moment, and people accessing that information in very different ways than we ever have, having access to so much information from so many different sources, and how people generally look at that through social media lenses and all those kind of things. So I think you've got a few things that you've come across that you want to chat about. There's a couple of things that I've come across as well. And I think we're just going to riff this and have a conversation about some things that we find interesting. So what have you come across in the world of communication and digital and all that kind of?
Yeah, so I was reading an article the other day from The Atlantic, and it was about the rise of anti-social media. And the article was basically about how we were promised that social media was always going to lead to more friends, more interactions. And in many ways, it led to certainly less meaningful ones. And now we're seeing AI become more and more popular and more of kind of people's everyday interactions. And the very people who created social media and the promises of social media helping us build bigger relationships and more relationships have noticed that that actually isn't the case. So they're now trying to create bots and chatbots and AI systems that will act more as a genuine friend to us that we can interact with. And the article looks at the positives of that, because there are some positives, but also the negatives of it. So you've not read the article yet. So before I get into kind of the stuff that covers and my own thoughts on it, I'd be interested to see how you feel artificial intelligence could impact true friendships and relationships, our general emotional intelligence, and how we actually manage our own emotions in day-to-day life.
Yeah, I think artificial intelligence is one of those things. I mean, it's everywhere right now. So even my wife was talking about this the other day, where these stories are coming through, and she, at this point, everything we see, all these videos are all like, oh, that's definitely AI.
Yeah.
And so I think people are becoming familiar with those things, but it's definitely impacting the way we perceive things. Now, I think there's different types of people, right? There are people that love the tech and are embracing the tech and go, oh, this is really cool, and get really excited. But the thing that scares me the most is this over-reliance on advice from your AI friends.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big concern. And there's a big concern in academia as well with regards to people that might be misusing academia AI, not just to write academic prose, for example, but also bad practice of grading and those things, and because it's typically very biased in the way it gives advice to the user and those kind of things. There's also, from a friendship point of view, people relying on friendships, which is a weird world. I think we've talked about this in a podcast previously with things like Replica, where you have these AI bots that become your friends, and then you see these relationships being developed with artificial intelligence that validates your existence constantly and tells you you're right all the time. And then that becomes problematic because you're not exposed to the reality of sometimes you need a bit of critique. So I think that's the area. But there's so many different areas of artificial intelligence to consider, and the way artificial intelligence is informing the information that we have access to in the first place is also, it's feeding us. The algorithms are feeding us in certain ways, and that can take us down very narrow pathways and reduce exposure to things that could open up our minds a little bit more with regards to information that could help us be a little bit more critical about things.
That was one of the key things in the article, actually, is it was talking about the friction you get in normal relationships that you're not really getting with an AI bot. So an AI bot will validate you a lot of the time, and it will, almost like an echo chamber, it very rarely, if at all, challenges you, says you're wrong, or gets bored because you've been going on for too long and starts picking up its phone and looking at it and giving you the social cues to wrap it up, which are all important things. Like, you could say, oh, it's rude for someone to do that, but it's also rude to just talk about yourself all night. And because AI isn't able to give that feedback, people could potentially get so used to that when they get into the outside world at a dinner party or whatever, they're not able to recognize that they should just shut up now and listen to somebody else.
Yeah, I think we've experimented with this as well, and I know, we've had a go at using the sort of GPT chat functions and those kind of things. Yeah. And when you ask ChatGPT,
what's yours called again?
Judith. Yeah.
Aaron named his.
Well, it's I like to be personal. If I'm going to have a friend, got to give a friend a name, right? But
you just picked the least sexiest name you could, just so you didn't fall in love with it.
There are people called Judith that are going to be listening to this.
I'm sure they're very sexy.
Okay.
Sorry, Judith.
So I could just imagine every Judith going, that's a bit harsh. Anyway. Got to wait for
Okay, so pulling this one back.
Yeah, so we've tested this kind of chat to say, well, give me some information about a particular topic. Now, if you ask it for a topic, it will give you information. But it depends how you ask that question, right? So if you're asking that question to say, I think this, can you tell me about this topic? It's going to find information that fits your particular belief system or your particular, because it wants to validate you, wants to make you happy, it seems. And then when we've challenged it before, I should say her, if I'm calling ChatGPT by her name Judith, then if I'm challenging, oh yes, you're correct. Yeah, sorry, I made a mistake. It's this. So then, because we challenge or ask to critique, it then may critique, but you have to ask it to critique. Otherwise, its default is to make you feel good about yourself. It seems it validates a lot, and I know that you can train, essentially, and train your ChatGPT, train your systems in order to be more critical, but it does seem to default back to that validation. And it's often completely inaccurate as well. It's what we've also found. It will give false information, wrong citations, wrong sources, or not cite, and those kinds of things. So, it's an interesting world.
How well do you think it can be used for things like therapy for someone?
Acting as like a proxy therapist, you mean? Yeah.
So, like, there's people I know who used to pay like £400 a month to go see a therapist. And now they've packed that in to use ChatGPT. So all the things that they would articulate to their therapist, they're now articulating to an AI. And they say they're quite happy with what they're getting back. Do you think it's advisable to use it for that, or do you think it's probably a path to more harm?
I would say no, personally. I think the human connection is missing there. And yes, you've got a proxy human, basically. You've got someone there that's acting as if they're human, but they're not. Like ChatGPT can't be emotional, so can't really understand the human experience. So yes, it's trained on large language models. So it's on the assumption of all of these therapeutic strategies that might be available, and looking at these case studies, case histories. If you can, you could technically train it to find the best, most likely positive solution and things using algorithms to work.
Statistically,
so statistically, it's probably best to say this rather than this. But again, it's not. The feedback isn't there. It's really one-sided. So you've got statistics on one side and probability one side. The other side is taking this information, and the problem is we are hugely over. The studies suggest that humans are becoming very over-reliant on artificial intelligence. It's a thing called the trust game in behavioral economics, where two people play, I have some money and I give you some money, it's quadrupled or tripled or whatever, and then you as a responder have a choice to give it back to me, give some back to me, give a bit back to me, half it, so there's a trust in, okay, I'll give you this, which means it quadruples, like an investment, and then you can choose what to do. They did an experiment using artificial intelligence on this to say, okay, if we run this a few times, a history develops on how trustworthy you are at giving me some money back, we half the money or whatever. Now, what they then did was, I give you money, you exploit that and don't give me anything back. So the money quadruples and you keep it. And then I do it again and I do it again. You keep doing that. Now, you seek advice. So then me, as the person that's investing money, I seek advice in the experiment. And if I'm told that a human advisor has looked at the history and said, you should not do anything, or you should trust them, you shouldn't trust them, I ignore them as the participants typically didn't change their behavior. If they were told that AI has monitored the history and AI says you should invest money again, there was a huge swing in that people believed the AI and still went for it, even in the absence of evidence to say that you're not going to exploit it again.
So it was trusted more than human.
It was trusted more than a human economic expert. So you say an economic expert has looked at this history, they've exploited you this many times, don't do it, and then you're probably like, okay, but if AI says do it, you'll do it. So it seems like because we believe that machines are better at calculating probability, we went for it, even though you have you've been mistrusted the whole way through. You'll still go for it. So I think there's this over-reliance element. We believe that humans are better at versus machines are better at that kind of those things. And what we're talking about there is humans are better at therapy, that kind of stuff. Machines are better at probability. So if we get that that balance wrong, it can be dangerous, and especially when it comes to investments and trust and that kind of thing. If people are taking advice, whether that's financial advice, mental health advice, we start getting into a dangerous world because we believe it's very accurate because a machine that's got access to the world gave me that advice, where in fact a human in that situation, in mental health situations or an investment situation, someone's got experience in investments and understands it a bit more, may have an idea of the more nuanced behaviours of economics or mental health to have a better idea of where to go. And they've experienced it as a human as well. Most therapists have been through therapy. Yeah. I'm making the assumption that ChatGPT hasn't gone through therapy and hasn't experienced the process and doesn't feel emotions. So, yeah, it's a difficult one. There's a long-winded way of approaching it, but I think that's an interesting way of thinking about it, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And it's so true that as well, because I think in the fact that people trust AI over humans, because we've always been told that AI in its current form is like the collective intelligence of everyone. So it's like, well, it would be great to have a conversation with Stephen Hawking because he's really clever and he'll probably give me the best advice or whatever. Yeah. And you kind of convince yourself that that's what AI is. Yeah. Because AI has got all that intelligence within it that it can deliver that advice. But within a therapy context, there's so much that you don't get in the written text that you're putting into ChatGPT or even the spoken text. Because currently it can't pick up on the nuances of the voice or anything. I'm sure in the future it will. But you can say a lot of things and your facial expressions, your tone of voice will convey something completely different. And a trained therapist will be able to pick up on that. And rather than respond to the question, respond to the behaviors, which could take down a completely different path. Whereas AI doesn't have that ability, so it will just address the question, not necessarily what's behind the question.
Yeah, I mean, it may still do something akin to active listening. You know, if you're responding, it repeats back. It might paraphrase, and summarize well, and so it does some of those things. But yeah, you're right. It's not picking up on those inferred things. There's a strong chance it will take you literally. So if I say something to you that I'll give you a certain sentence, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but if I might say something to you about what I'm feeling, and what I say is one thing, but what you infer from what I say is something else. So a ChatGPT isn't going to get that inference or the implication that's meant by that statement necessarily. It's probably going to take it more literally.
Yeah.
And then when you've got the other channels, you can pick up on that, because if I say, yeah, everything's fine, I'm pretty good. You know, that if I wrote in, yes, I'm fine, I'm pretty good in ChatGPT, done. Yeah, done. Yeah, okay. Oh, great. You're pretty good. Wonderful. But the fact that I had, I'm pretty good, wavering voice, I'm pretty good. I've got an exclusion qualifier in there as well, so I'm not fully good. I'm pretty good. My my volume is low. So yeah, those things are all massive. So I think probability-wise, statistically, it can probably, given this context verbally, it will give you the statistically most likely, effective strategy or thing to say from a therapeutic point of view. But I certainly wouldn't recommend it over a human therapy approach.
Yeah.
Or any kind of talking therapy, counselling, whatever it might be. Or just going to speak to a friend is probably better than ChatGPT in some cases. I think it's useful for finding out, even that, it can be wrong, that's the problem. It's useful for finding out information, but you should definitely, it says it in ChatGPT, it says you should check the facts, don't take it as written, because it's sometimes wrong. It actually says that on ChatGPT, but people tend not to.
Because I guess there is an element of instant gratification or instant calming of getting a response that might validate the way you feel, which makes you feel good.
Yeah.
And we want everyone to feel good. That's a good thing, right? But if it's based on crappy information, if it's not really addressing the core of what the person using it needs to get to, and it's just kind of superficially painting over it just to make them feel good for the day, like it might help them get through that day. But if it doesn't get to the core, which I don't think in its current form it's capable of doing, then really it's papering over the cracks.
Yeah.
And it's that fine line of when is it helpful just to get people out of a small rut they might be in, to where is it destructive in missing everything else that's going on underneath it. But it's going to be interesting to see how that develops, and there's already companies doing it right now.
Yeah.
Even with executive coaching and all that, there's a lot of people using AI to do that kind of stuff, and it is troubling because it doesn't yet have that friction you get with real people, and you kind of need that friction.
And you need to feel bad sometimes as well, right? So
it's how you learn, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's part of the human experience. So I'm not saying that it's great to feel bad, but you can't appreciate feeling good if you've not felt bad.
Yeah.
So it's that kind of that balance of appreciating the sweetness in life through the bitterness of life. You have to have some of that kind of light and dark, I think, without getting too philosophical or anything. But yeah, if it's constantly validating and constantly, that's not reality. And yeah, it's a dangerous world. And I think it's again this feeding of information, and it kind of leads into one of the other things that we were talking about, which is that the amount of information that we're getting, we're being directed down these kind of narrow pathways by AI to only look at this section or only look at that section. The algorithms on YouTube, for example, you start looking at one particular thing, and I noticed it when I'm looking at multiple to be critical. I'm looking at one thing. Okay, let's find someone talking about the opposite, and suddenly they'll feed you loads of that side, and then so all of a sudden I'm down this right wing, heavily radical wing down here. It's like, well, I don't want to look at all of this, so I'm just interested to see what the other side is saying.
Yeah.
And it says, well, you're looking at this, so you should probably look at all of these people too. And it's like, well, I don't want to do that, and I don't particularly want to look at the radical on this side either. And so in trying to get a balanced approach, the algorithm is trying to work out
it's so frustrating.
What should I feed you? It's annoying.
It's like you'd need a reset button every 2 months or so, because you'll spend a month looking into. I got really into watching snooker. I just went through a mad phase of I don't even play snooker. I just loved watching it. Found it really relaxing, so I'd watch snooker.
That gives me 80s vibes.
Yeah, exactly. It got to the point of where all it fed me was snooker, and I'd lost all my other interests, and I had to do like a hard reset, almost create a new account just so I could get back to like just a normal baseline and start, being fed different things.
Yeah.
And
You started looking back at your knitting videos.
yeah, exactly. Back at my golf and my knitting and all that kind of stuff. But it's just if the same thing applies to like going down a right wing rabbit hole or a left wing rabbit hole, it's very easy for an algorithm to actually change your perception of things.
Yeah.
And then it's whether we've got and whether we've developed the critical thinking to notice it and recognize what's happening and approach it differently.
Yeah. I think we're seeing that a lot right now and sort of taking us off in that direction with regards to we're all being exposed because of the way information is fed to us. We often fall into these echo chambers and narrow pathways because of algorithms that are giving those things, and I don't think people are armed with the critical thinking skills to discern information that could be misleading or misinformation or fake news is one of the other terms out there, that kind of stuff. And how do we go about doing this? I was reading an interesting paper a couple of weeks ago on looking at misinformation and media literacy training, and thinking that media literacy training should probably be part of the schooling system to help with that process.
100%.
Because if you just take I don't want to pick on a paper, but Daily Mail, for example. Daily Mail is the one source that I would say I'm very critical of, because a lot of the articles I read in the Daily Mail, they misrepresent a lot of things, and when you dive into the research that the Daily Mail is quoting, then you find out actually that's not what the research was saying. It actually said something completely different. And so I think they were talking about this inoculation theory concept of teaching people to be forearmed so that they can pre-bunk information, not debunk information. So that if you teach children in particular, probably teens, when we get to that kind of period, to understand how influence works, so that as soon as an article or a video or something comes in, there are certain elements of it that make you straight away go, wait, this could be misleading. The way they've framed it, the way it's opening, leads me to think that I'm about to be influenced by something. And they might do ad hominem attacks or something like that. They start attacking the person and not the idea, or they say either you believe this or you don't believe this, and you're with them. That kind of them and us kind of thing. Where in fact, no, you can actually have a spectrum of opinions in between. You don't have to go this way or that way. So all of these kinds of things to think about. How do you teach people to pre-bunk, give them that critical thought to go, even before you've gone through the whole thing, you can pick up on certain flags that go, okay, right, be wary that this is a very, they're trying to trigger, they are trying to influence and manipulate your thinking. So, have that, rather than listening to it and then believing it and sharing it, and relying on other people to debunk it, not doing the debunking and sharing. And they were saying that media literacy kind of training it won't change beliefs. So if you already fundamentally believe, if you're a conspiracy theorist, you're full on down a rabbit hole, it's not going to change that, because your belief is strong, so it's rare that it will change it. But when it comes to discerning, okay, what's good information and bad information, and whether I share information, it does seem to have more of an impact on those areas, on how I separate good and bad information, and whether I choose to share it if I have media literacy training. But it might not change my fundamental belief about something. I think in the paper I was reading, there was a positive correlation with age and it not working. A negative correlation. So older people with media literacy training are less likely to change in their behaviours, because they're kind of set in their ways, whereas younger people are more likely to change in their critical thinking. Well, that does depend, obviously, that's a sweeping generalisation, because there are some people, like, again, if you have a firm belief or a strong ideology or a religious belief, whatever it might be, you're not going to shift in that, regardless whatever kind of training you have. But it depends who you are, whether you're talking about, I'm Gen X, I think I would be Gen X. And then you've got the boomers that came before me and beyond. And then you're millennial, right? You're millennial. And then we've got obviously the Zs and the alphas and that kind of thing. And I think you're seeing there's a different appetite and a different consumption of information from all of these different generations. There are people like my parents, for example, they don't use social media. Now and again they might post on Facebook, my dad might or something, but they're not going to do much critical thinking at this point. This is what I believe for my parents. It's got me this far, this is what I believe, and that's it. Whereas I'd like to think, if we take my son, who's, I don't know, alpha, I guess, so he's 10 years old, he's at that kind of moldable age where we can say, okay, this is what we mean by critical thinking. Probably not using that language at 10, but we can sort of introduce that critical thought, which hopefully will give them a bit of forearming them as they move up. Because even when they get into their teens, that's when you start to see this kind of group mentality a little bit more when it comes to positions, whether it's political positions or whatever it might be.
Surviving high school.
Yeah, exactly. So you kind of, you want to be in the group. So the people that are shouting the loudest, I want to be part of that group, I want to be part of this group. And so if you can kind of get critical thought in before that happens, then maybe that's a better place to go. But they're definitely more, it's definitely easier to change that kind of thinking process for younger people than it is older people, according to the research.
Nice.
But so, I mean, we're painting a little bit of a bleak picture, but I think with regards to, there's definitely some huge positives with artificial intelligence coming in. We use artificial intelligence for sure. It's a good place to think about, structuring and those kinds of things. It's just you've got to pair it with critical thought and not rely on it. And remember that human connection is still as important as artificial intelligence. Human intelligence is still a valid means to finding information, not just artificial intelligence.
Yeah, and it's when does it stop being a tool to help you do tasks quicker, and starts becoming a opportunity to hide from interactions with people?
For sure.
It's wild.
Yeah, it is. So in summary, I think I use AI. I will probably continue to use AI, but I use AI in the knowledge that AI can be incorrect. AI does try to validate you. And when it comes to social media, I don't use social media much. As you know, I'm not a massive social media advocate. I love LinkedIn. LinkedIn's a nice platform for me. But the use of LinkedIn, the use of social media, use of AI is something that I think we all have to embrace. It's a big part of the world right now, as is access to huge amounts of information. But again, just that critical thought, whether I'm using AI, whether I'm listening to a human, should be fundamental. And thinking about, coming back to emotional intelligence, I guess, our world is, how do these things make me feel? And if I'm constantly feeling good about everything that something's telling me, it's like, then I'm probably not being challenged enough. So sometimes you need to be challenged. Coming back to your point about friction and friends and real humans, I think we need that challenge sometimes. And if you're like, oh, I'm right, I feel good, you're probably not asking the right questions or speaking to the right people.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have to remember the people who are developing these platforms as well. And their purpose behind developing the platforms, and that might not actually align with what we're looking to get out of it.
Yeah.
And it comes back to your critical thinking of, I'm using this platform, who developed it, what is their intentions with it, and at the end of the day, it's always coming back to engagement and money.
Yeah.
Does that align with what I'm trying to use it for? And then establishing how much you're going to trust that piece of software. For sure.
So plenty more stuff we could talk about, but we'll be here forever if we keep going. So let's have a chat about some other stuff next time.
All right, see you next week.